Hey guys, welcome back to the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out the episode today. You guys, today we're going to be talking about whether or not bass feel heat and cold, how heat and cold affects bass in terms of water temperatures, and in general, how water temperature affects bass, because I think there's a lot of myths and misconceptions to this. I'm going to give you guys my experience because I've had some experiences in fishing that don't really equate to what you read a lot about, water temperature and bass. So we're going to dig into that in today's episode here. Also, guys, thank you very much, man, for everybody who's taken time to subscribe here to the Fishing Teacher. Appreciate everybody that's joined as a channel member of the Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate everybody that's been using all the links that I put in every video description. Guys, if you get anything out of these fishing tips and you want to do something to get back to the channel for those tips, if you just use and bookmark like that tackle warehouse link that's in every video description, anytime you need a rod and reel or tackle, that's a big way to help out. So really appreciate that from me and my family if you're doing that. Okay, here's the thing about water temperature and bass and heat and cold and water. There is a lot of things that don't make sense with it, and that's what I really want to dig into in today's episode. And ultimately, one of the things that is so difficult about bass fishing is the fact that bass do a lot of things that don't make any sense. And all the stuff that you read in magazines or watch on YouTube videos or watch on fishing television shows, there's just a lot of unpredictability when it comes to bass, and a lot of that has to do with how they behave in different type of water temperatures. Now, there's a lot of factors that determine, like the lures that bass bite and where they're at and different type of conditions. And they live in some places that doesn't make any sense at certain times of the year. For example, I have seen bass swimming in like 2 and 3 foot of water in 40-degree water, and I've seen them swimming in a foot of water in 100-degree water. And I've also seen them busting shad out in the middle of the lake over 100 foot of water in 40-degree water and 80-degree water. It's like they do what they want to do, and they are unpredictable, and there's a lot that we don't understand about them, and that's good, that's okay. So I want to give you guys some general rules of thumb about water temperature and bass, what I have found out about it. And I don't really want to get into this whole thing about water temperature versus water clarity, because you hear me talking about that a lot as far as techniques. That's another description. But I want to talk about their metabolism and how they move in different type of water temperatures. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions is in cold water. A lot of people think that since a bass is a cold water creature, they're like a snake or a turtle, and they get real dormant in cold water and don't move around, or if they do, they're very sluggish because they're cold-blooded. Guys, that ain't true. I have seen bass move fast in cold water. I'm talking about 40-degree water. I have seen them move fast, and I have caught them on baits that were moving fast in 40-degree water. I don't really understand it, because if you're a cold-blooded creature, you would think that would naturally slow you down. But I guess 40 degrees is not cold enough for them. Maybe if it was frozen solid or something. But I have caught a lot of fish in 40-degree water moving a jerkbait pretty dang fast, where they have to move pretty fast to catch it. So that's one aspect of it. Now, when you start to get above, say, 55-degree water, you start noticing that bass behave differently as far as how they swim and how they move based upon those water temperatures, not really related to water clarity. Now, in general, yeah, you may have the bass moving a little bit slower and reacting a little slower in cold water, even though I've seen exceptions like we just talked about. But once you get into situations where you have water temperatures about, probably 55 to 75 degrees, this is when water temperature makes the bass most active, and where they swim around fast and they cover large territories. If you have water temperatures in that range, I have seen bass moving so fast you can't even hardly see them. And I've seen bass travel a long way, and they move a lot, and they cover a lot of water, and they travel up and down different type of highways in the lakes. They really cover a lot of ground in that temperature range, and that's the temperature range where it's usually the best fishing. It's like when you got water temperatures that are especially in the 60s and 70s, that's when I catch a lot of bass. I would say that probably whether it be the spring time of the year when it's like that, or the fall time of the year when that water temperature is between like 65 or 55 and 65 degrees. That is when bass are biting the best, and that's when they're most active, and that's when you can catch them on a diversity of different techniques, and you can also catch them on a diversity of different depth ranges. That's just, I think bass really like that. I think that if you could say to bass, it's like, okay, what water temperature do you want to live in? I think they would say something around 60 degrees. Now, for the sake of the video, and given the fact this video is filmed in August, let's talk about hot water and bass. And when I'm talking about hot water, I'm talking about warm water, because like right now in my lakes in Missouri here, all of our water temperatures are pushing 90 degrees. It's 88 to 92 degrees water temperature at about any lake that we have around here. And from what I have seen in a situation like this, they don't mind. They do not mind being in hot water. I have been catching fish the last 3 or 4 weeks out of 3 and 4 foot of water that I guarantee that water temperature is in the 80s and 90s everywhere in that. They don't try to avoid it. Here's the thing about it. It's just like yesterday I was fishing. The water temperature was 89 degrees where I was fishing, and I was catching fish 2 foot deep in 89 degree water. Now, why would a bass be in 89 degree water when all they have to do is swim another 50 foot away from them, and they can go down into 15 or 20 foot of water and probably be in 60 degree water? Why are they in that hot water? If they don't have to be. They're not forced to be up in there. They're not forced to live around that shallow lay down tree in 90 degree water, but they do it. Here's the overriding factor with all of it. It all has to do with bait. It all has to do with food. It all has to do with the depth range and the area that the food source is in. So in the summertime of the year, like right now, if you look at water temperature being 90 degrees, you can also get up there in 2 foot of water, 90 degree water, and you can wade around in knee deep water, and you can turn over rocks and there'll be a bunch of crawdads underneath them. There'll be Hellgrammites under them. You can look down the bank and you can see bluegills and black perch swimming down the bank. You can see little schools of minnows that big swimming down the bank. Yesterday we saw some 1.5 foot snakes, little small water snakes in there, which they will gobble up in a second. So there's a lot of food up in that zone there in the warm water. Other creatures prefer it. So that's why the bass are there. So I just don't think we tend to relate water temperature to air temperature as far as comfort zone. I mean, we are comfort oriented creatures being humans. So we're always wanting to be comfortable, but bass they're not like that. They don't think in terms of being comfortable. They think in terms of being, what is going to ensure my survival the most. So, guys, just a few random thoughts on that. Hope you're all well. We'll talk later.